They were kings, warriors, lords of men, rulers whose names are now lost to time. Each of them accepted a ring that promised power beyond imagination, strength over others, wealth without end, and life far longer than any mortal should know. There were 9 of them, 9 men, chosen not by chance, but by desire. The rings did not come by force. They were given, offered as gifts, by a power that understood the hearts of men. And men, as they always do, accepted. At first, nothing seemed wrong. Their years stretched unnaturally long. Their presence became feared. Their power grew. But slowly, their bodies began to fade, and with them, their wills weakened. They did not die. They did not truly live. Instead, they were drawn into the unseen world, a realm of shadow where only one will ruled. This is how men were unmade, not through sudden destruction, but through patience, through temptation, through gifts that were never meant to be kept. The 9 rings did not create servants overnight. They erased identities, consumed souls, and reshaped men into something else entirely, something bound to fear, bound to the one ring, bound forever to the Dark Lord. Today, we will uncover what the 9 rings truly did to their bearers, and how the greatest kings of men became the Nazgûl. Their names were forgotten long ago. No songs remember the titles they claimed. No chronicler lists the banners they marched under. If they had statues, they are dust. If they had heirs, they have long since forgotten why their blood once mattered. All we truly know is this: before they were shadows, they were men. And not ordinary men. They were the kind of men who reshaped the world around them. Men whose voices ended arguments. Men who watched others bow and decided it should always be that way. Some were kings with wide borders and restless neighbors. Some were warlords who carved their names into stone and bone. Some ruled cities of trade and gold, where every handshake had a price. But there was one thing none of them could command: time. Even in an age of rising kingdoms, even surrounded by armies, even with vaults full of treasure, they still faced the same quiet certainty as every other mortal: the inevitable shrinking of years, the slow betrayal of the body, the knowledge that one day their throne would belong to someone else. And for men like these, that wasn't just terrifying, it was unacceptable. Because a small ambition can live with limits. A great ambition cannot. Great ambition demands more time, more strength, more control, until even the shape of the world feels too small. So when something came whispering that there was a way, when power arrived wearing the mask of a gift, they were ready. Not because they were weak, but because they were exactly the kind of men the gift was made for. And so Sauron came to them, not as a tyrant demanding obedience. He came with understanding. Sauron spoke to them as one ruler to another, as one who knew the weight of crowns, the loneliness of command, and the quiet fear that comes when power begins to slip away. And he offered them everything they had ever wanted. Not promises shouted across battlefields, but solutions spoken softly. Not demands, but gifts. Rings. Each one crafted to answer a different hunger. To one, unchallenged rule. To another, strength no enemy could overcome. To another, a legacy that would not fade. They did not see chains, they saw relief. Because Sauron did not offer them something new. He offered them more of what they already were. More authority, more certainty, more time. And he spoke the one truth that all mortals fear, but few dare to name. That power is meaningless if it cannot endure. That kingdoms fall not because they are conquered, but because their rulers grow old. That death is the greatest enemy of all. So when the rings were placed into their hands, they did not feel tricked. They felt chosen. chosen to rise above the limits that bind lesser men. And each of them believed the same thing, the thought that seals every great downfall: I will be the exception. Because Sauron did not need to force them to accept the rings. Men like these had been reaching for something like them their entire lives. At first, it must have felt like a miracle. Years passed, and they did not wither the way other men did. The slow decline all mortals dread simply did not arrive. Strength lingered. Clarity stayed sharp. The heart kept beating with stubborn refusal to make room for the end. Their enemies noticed. Their allies noticed too. A king who should have grown old did not. A lord who should have weakened only became harder to challenge. And fear is occurrences. It buys silence. It buys obedience. It buys peace. At least the kind of peace that comes when no one dares test you. Their voices carried farther. Their presence filled rooms. Even when they spoke softly, it felt like command. They told themselves the same lie every powerful man tells himself. I can stop whenever I want. I am in control. This is mine. But the rings were patient. They always were. They had all the time in the world. Patience is not mercy. It is time working in someone else's favor. The changes came quietly. The world felt thinner. And sometimes, in perfect silence, they felt the distant will of Sauron waiting. They had begun to fade. In time, there were no longer 9 men. There were 9 shadows. They were bound to fear, bound to the One Ring, bound forever to Sauron. One among them fell further than the rest. In time, he would be known as the Witch King. And through him, the 9 became weapons. And when the One Ring was unmade, they came apart in silence. No release, no return. The 9 rings promised men everything they desired, and they delivered. But the price was everything. The Nazgûl were not born monsters. They were made. Slowly, carefully. And their story remains, a warning that power can never be taken without consequence. If you wish to explore even deeper into the ancient history of Arda, go watch our next video about Saruman and why he was right. Thank you for watching, and if you want more tales from Middle-earth, join us and subscribe so you don't miss the next story.